The ugly truth of waterfront living in South Florida. My name is David Siddons and I am a very unfiltered and very direct real estate broker down here in South Florida, having sold real estate for over 20 years. And most recently, off the back of our previous video, The Ugly Truth of Miami New Construction, which has had an overwhelming response, we decided to do one about waterfront living down here in South Florida. And what do we mean, the ugly truth? Well, quite simply, we're going to be unfiltered to talk about the pros and cons of what you should and should not be doing when you're looking to buy a property down here in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach. I'm standing here with an incredible backdrop. This is an incredible piece of real estate. It perfectly illustrates points that I'm going to make about what you need to be looking at when you are buying a property down here on the water. I've been selling waterfront real estate for nearly 20 years. This represents one of 3 waterfront properties that I've currently got on my books. On the mainland, I specialize a lot in Coconut Grove and Coral Gables, but we're going to be talking about properties throughout Miami and beyond and those pros and cons. So the first ugly truth that I'm going to get to is not all waterfront properties are equal, and therefore they're not priced all equally. It's very important to understand that when you look at waterfront homes, you've got open water, you've got 1 bridge to the bay, you've got 2 bridges to the bay, you've got canal, you've got intercoastal. All of these have very specific prices. So when you're valuing real estate and understanding what you should pay, you really need to understand the nuances of how prices vary. Why? Because quite importantly, what boat you can actually put outside your property is often going to be determined by bridges and bays and other elements as well. Ugly truth number 2, not all waterfront buyers should be looking at waterfront. The reality is that sometimes the cheap becomes expensive. So if you see a very cheap waterfront home, there's always and often going to be a catch with it. You need to understand whether or not you can even get a boat there, or whether or not the property is even going to work as the home. Because you're not just buying the dock, you are buying the property and you're buying the land and what it represents. So sometimes these older homes on very small lots don't work so well. Sometimes you might get an angle of water that you think is great, but then you realize it just doesn't work. When you see often renderings, it looks absolutely gorgeous, but the reality can be very, very different. Point number 3, the aspect of waterfront houses. The ugly truth of waterfront homes is that the way that they're located, with the amount of sun that they get, with the light, with the water, the whole experience. Miami is a hot and sunny place. So understand west-facing aspect, south-facing aspect, north-facing aspect, east-facing aspect. The environment is super important. And as I stand here on this property, I've actually got a breeze behind me. And why does that matter? Because you've got winds that travel, and they travel from east to west, and you have to understand how that breeze comes through. Miami was built many years ago without air conditioning. Many houses were designed to understand the airflow. But with modern technology, lots of houses get built and you don't understand how airflow works, and you could end up with a house where it's absolutely dead still, no breeze, and that means gets even hotter. Point number 4, and maybe the most significant point today, is insurance. I have previously run a podcast where I interviewed someone that used to work for Citizen, and they are the main insurance carrier. And waterfront houses, much like anything on the water, is being massively impacted. You need to understand that insurance premiums for waterfront homes are being most pronounced with the older properties. If the house isn't elevated to new codes, insurance premiums go up and up and up. In fact, right now, I know of homes on North Bay Road in Miami Beach where the insurance is $250,000 per year to insure those homes. And most likely, it can even continue to go up. So be very wary what you're buying. So if you think you're getting a deal and buying an older home and you're maybe just going to fix it up, it's still going to be a lower elevation. And that lower elevation means it's very hard to insure, maybe not even insurable at all. And that is a real ugly truth. The city will make you tear the house down. They will not allow you to remodel it. And that means that cheap little fix-up situation that you might think you're getting yourself into turns into a nightmare very, very quickly. Point number 5, understand your locations. I've talked a little bit about bridges to the bay, open water, but understand the environment around you, because you don't just live out there on the boat. You want nice water, you want great access, you want that whole life, but understand the neighborhood around you. I sell a lot of things in Coconut Grove and Coral Gables. Yes, I absolutely sell the beach, but for those who live all year round, the primary residence, the accessibility to a great center, to shops, to restaurants, to schools, to other things, is vastly important. And that is a universal truth almost of all real estate. But when it comes to water, you also want to think about what you can do when you're out on the water, what you've got access to. What waterfront restaurants are close by? What canals and channels are close by? It's not just necessarily about boating. There's also the thoughts of paddleboarding and other water sports that you can consider. But you've got to think about your environment around you. You've got to think about riparian rights, whether or not the neighbor has open access with someone to bring their paddleboard down the side of your property. You've got to think about where your property sits with the environment and the nature and the wildlife around you. One of the most wonderful things that I've experienced selling waterfront, for example, was a property out on Key Biscayne where dolphins and manatees would come into the bay during the day and they would breed, and you would see them jumping around and having a grand old time in this protected inlet. And that is also very important because it adds to the beauty and enhances the experience. Coming to point number 6. The actual environment with your boat and what you need in order to make that life that you have with the boat that you want an actual reality. Every boat has a draft, which is how much the boat goes into the water. So to understand that and figure out what's going to matter, you've also got to understand the depth of the canal. How deep is the water and where does it become deep? Because that's going to determine how big a boat you can actually get through to actually be outside your property. And then you've got to think about the actual position of the boat on the dock and where it is. Now, in this case, we're sitting on a very unique, nearly an acre in a prime location with a protected area where there's a marina really close by. This makes it very handy to get your boat looked at if you need it to be looked at. But because in this case, the house is a point lot, one side of it will allow you to put your boat and the other side keeps it open so you have incredible view. You want to make sure that your boat doesn't block your view. So you have to consider what land is available on the property for you to put your boat on. And then you've got to think about how you maneuver your boat. Now, many times people think about where they're going to position their boat, how they're going to move it around, how they're going to park it, and also how it's going to be having a boat. And that takes me actually to point 7, understanding what it's like to live on a peninsula front, open water view house. Again, open water is fantastic. The views are wonderful. It's very charming on paper. But understand that if you have an open water situation and the storm picks up and the wind picks up and the waves pick up, a big boat can really get damaged if you're in open water. In fact, in many cases, it's preferable if you have your boat outside your house all the time that you actually want to be in a more protected area. This house, for example, once again, is such a prime location because you get an incredibly expansive view. But because you're actually on a protected area here, it's going to be very calm, very peaceful, and excellent for your boat. Obviously giving you room to maneuver. And point number 8, and I'm going to probably make this my final point, understand what the other boaters are doing around you in your environment. Don't get me wrong, I love Miami Beach real estate. I love the water that you see when you're up there in Bar Harbor or when you're on Venetian Islands. But there's a lot of tourism. There's a lot of day trippers. There's a lot of party boats. There's a lot of people on jet skis running around making a lot of noise. And that, if you're in a particular location, could mean a lot of boat traffic coming past your house, which can mean a lack of privacy. So you might not mind once or twice, but if this happens every single day, it's going to get into your head. It's going to affect the quality of living in that location. Now, aspect is such a wide conversation to talk about, and there's many more areas I could discuss, but really these are some of the key points. I want to share this with you because I am unfiltered, and I think that people do need to be protected. And I have unbiased in so many areas that I cover real estate, and I'm very analytical. And I'll help you understand the values of these homes in these waterfront areas. But waterfront living is expensive, it comes at cost, it's a great amount of investment that you're going to get involved with here, but you need to really understand it. And there are many, many areas that you can be in quite happily within Miami that you can get waterfront houses. I'm going to rattle off a few of the neighborhoods that you can look at, and you can give me a call if you want to know more. So I'm going to start you with going south, moving north. I'm just going to give you some areas that I think are really good to look at for waterfront houses. So from the south, Old Cutler Bay and Gables Estates are fantastic communities on the water where you have big lots. We're talking an acre or more where you can have large vessels. That is a wonderful place if you want a boat and you want to be close to a good family environment with great schools on the mainland. Coming up from there, where we're standing right now, Cocoplum, a wonderful neighborhood. You have typical lots which might be a little smaller, around the 15,000, 10,000 square foot lots. This is the exception to the rule. This is an acre. This is a unicorn. And then as we move north of that, we get into other communities within Coconut Grove. You've got the moorings, which again is a very popular walk into the heart of Coconut Grove environment, Devon Court. Moving north of that, I'll take you into Bay Point. Bay Point is a beautiful community on the mainland sitting opposite the areas of the Design District in Wynwood. A gated community with waterfront homes. And sitting next to that, as we move towards the beach, the Venetian Islands, Hibiscus, Palm, Toledo, San Marino. They're all different and they offer different things and different prices. But there is inherently a difference in price between these islands. Then you've got Star Island, you've got the big boy players, you've got Indian Creek, you've got Sunset Islands, there's two ventricles to Sunset Islands, which are on the beach side. And then some of the smaller pockets that I really love. Allison Island, Lagos Island. Love those two pockets, real family kind of neighborhoods, cozy, cute, nicely done homes, great area, very central. And then let's go north, you've got Bal Harbor. Bow Bay Drive, one of the hottest pieces of real estate that you can get when you're looking for waterfront as you move north. And of course, let's not forget North Bay Road. That is the crowning glory for Miami Beach waterfront living, where you're running North Bay as it travels on the intercoastal side. Great open bay views, beautiful homes, obviously some of the most expensive real estate you can find. These are just some of the examples that I can talk about. If you'd like to get granular, give me a call. Thank you for watching My Ugly Truth, and always see my information below. Thank you for watching.